I'm trying to think how many years ago it was that I had this wonderful privilege of meeting for the first time Vassula when she came to South Africa with Father Michael Carroll, who was her spiritual guide at that time. And I was in the seminary because I'm a late vocation. I lived life first and then decided that the way I was living life was not really living life, and so it needed to be changed. So I cut my cloth accordingly. And I remember being very sheepish. Vassula and Father Michael were sitting in the Cathedral Presbytery where I was staying on vacation, and I went in with my little book and I asked her please to sign my book, to autograph my book, and she did it so graciously. And so began this wonderful change in my life. And all through the seminary years I would get these little daggers about true life in God and about Vassula and about all sorts of negativity. But nothing would ever deter me from maintaining that relationship. I never think about the messages of true life in God. I just try to live them and to understand them and to accept them. I've never been challenged by the messages of true life in God because they are just natural. They are natural messages that come to us to show us how we can live a better life. And I would just like to say that in the Roman Catholic lectionary, the Mass lectionary, there is a Mass specially for Christian unity. And I think that that page in the lectionary is most probably the page that is least ever used. So I would like to say to all my Catholic brothers, can we, in the next 2 years before we come back again, can we try and turn to that page for Christian unity and celebrate the Eucharist more often and with more determined hearts for unity? So from the seminary I became a priest, and then Vassula came to South Africa again, and somebody said, please, would you just come and MC our meetings? And so began a more intimate relationship with True Life in God South Africa, and I became like their spiritual director. And I can only say what a blessing this has been for me, what an incredible blessing, and how privileged I've been to be on all of the second year pilgrimages except the very first one. And it's been absolutely amazing, and I'd like to thank Theodora and Anna-Marie for their wonderful, wonderful generosity, their kindness, the way they put these pilgrimages together. It's like little miracles every second year, miracles every second year. Having had this privilege of being on these pilgrimages on a regular basis, the most beautiful thing is as you walk along a street or you're visiting a church, to see a familiar face from 2 years ago or 4 years ago or 6 years ago, that is so magnificent. And it is as if when you develop a friendship with a True Life in Godder, that friendship doesn't have to be something that you email on a daily basis or a weekly basis. When you see someone, it's as if it's a family member coming to you and you just feel part of that family again. And so I'm missing the face of the Monsignor from Philippines, Monsignor Kierkegaard, and I'm missing Valerie's face as well, very, very much, and Father Tony Sullivan, So when I once had to introduce Vassula, I told a little story. And from that day, Vassula has put a little handcuff on my arm, and she insists that this story has to be told on either in the bus or in a general meeting. So this is how it goes. Every imaginable denomination was in attendance, almost like we are, 20 various denominations, for an unprecedented spiritual event, unity. During one very well-attended meeting, a secretary suddenly rushed in shouting, "Fire! The building is on fire." At which point, Father Gavin, the Methodists in the corner prayed. The Baptists cried, "Where is the water?" The Lutherans posted a notice on the door declaring that fire was evil. The Roman Catholics immediately called for a collection to cover the damages. The Jews posted symbols on the doors, hoping that the fire would pass. The Congregationalists shouted, "Every man for himself." And the fundamentalists proclaimed, "It's the vengeance of God." The Episcopalians, the Anglicans, formed a procession and marched out. The Christian Scientists concluded there was no fire. The Presbyterians appointed a chairperson to appoint a committee to look into the matter and make a written report. The Orthodox prepared a statement. "Be aware of the breeze that is sent from the west. It can fan a fire." And then a very cool and calm and collected secretary grabbed the fire extinguisher and put out the fire. The moral of the story is, my sisters and brothers, put out the fires that cause disunity. Put out the fires that cause disunity, but keep aflame the fire of unity in diversity. Keep that flame, keep that Holy Spirit alive, and let that Holy Spirit burn in all of our hearts.